We're talking with Andrew Hysell, who is the Executive Director of the Kansas Reading Roadmap, and we're talking about creating pathways to literacy for kids across the state. And I mentioned that you work with a lot of kids in low-income families, and you have some stats for me about that.
Yes, I'm glad you brought this up, because while the Reading Roadmap focuses on breaking the cycle of poverty by improving literacy, in the here and now, we're supporting low-income working families to give their children good options for after-school care, but also to help those families hold full-time employment.
Mm-hmm.
In the state of Kansas, there are 65,000 families living in poverty, and there are almost 100,000 single-parent families.
My goodness.
It's a lot of people. And if you think about it, one of the hardest things you have to deal with other than your job is trying to figure out, will your children be cared for? The grants that we provide to school for the out-of-school care and the summer care are used by schools to support these low-income families so that they can maintain full-time employment. So it's a really great thing to highlight, because sometimes we just don't think about that. We don't think about what goes into a person's successful career.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're making minimum wage, it's really a challenge. According to Child Care Aware, which is a national child care advocacy organization, school-age child care costs on average $5,000 a year.
My goodness.
And that's significant money. And the idea that you could get that through your school at no cost, which is what happens at a Reading Roadmap site, means that these families have one less thing to worry about, one more reason to make it to their job and earn a paycheck, which obviously helps them in so many ways. Helps them in terms of being in control of their own future, gives them a real sense of self-esteem, and it's a really positive thing. So it's just important. We just like to bring it back to this today, because ultimately our goal is to really support low-income families, and we can do that in a number of ways. Another way is meals.
Mm-hmm.
We help our schools through partnerships tap federal dollars that are available for low-income families and children to help feed them. Healthy snacks and meals. We provided statewide 60,000 meals last year through these programs.
My goodness.
And 340,000 servings of healthy snacks, which includes a fruit and a vegetable.
That's wonderful.
So these are really in communities where families may be stretched at the end of the month, maybe between paychecks. Having this in the mix really helps.
And there's more and more of those families across the country.
Yeah.
And you're right. You're talking about, I went to a DCF thing, as I told you, in Salina. The state of Kansas is really struggling with providing quality child care for people with, poverty situations, low-income families. I mean, it's hard to be able to afford what child care costs, but if you're working 2 and 3 jobs just trying to put food on the table, and then you got to think, okay, where's little Johnny and Susie going to go, when I'm working? That's a really hard thing. And another thing that they talk about is, nighttime care, or if a parent wanted to go and get an education, what are you going to do with the child then? And how do we offset that? So there's a lot of challenges that the state has currently that they're trying to address. And I'm glad that you're taking over a piece of that with this particular program.